How governments tax and spend your money is always a hot topic here at Sun News. So when tax day and Ontario's budget day fell in the same week, you can sure bet there was a lot for us to discuss. With more on the best of our coverage this week, here's Sun News Live senior producer Sumrin Bond.
Thanks, Brian. On Producer's Picks, we start where else but politics. Is Ontario headed toward an election? That's the question many people in this province are asking after the governing Liberals released their budget earlier this week. It panders heavily to the NDP. In fact, it borrows more from an opposition party than any budget before it. The Tories have already said they cannot support this budget. The NDP has yet to say whether it will support the budget or not. Now, we spoke to the leaders of both the opposition parties this week, but we also wanted to talk to somebody from the governing Liberals about how they feel about opposition attacks, despite the fact that they pandered so heavily to one party. On Canada Live, we had Minister Brad Dogood, who is a Minister of Training, Colleges and Universities, explain his party's position on the budget and the opposition.
Tim Hudak decided he wasn't going to read the budget before he was going to oppose it, so we had no choice but to work with the NDP. There are a number of initiatives there that are good, that the NDP and NDP supporters would find a positive, but there's also a number of initiatives that our business community would find important. That is just as important. This is not an NDP budget. This is a budget that's good for jobs in the economy that also speaks to some of the issues that are important to the NDP, and that's important to recognize.
That Producer's Pick was brought to you by Sarah Ramsaran, who is the Chase producer for Weekends and also for Canada Live. Now, for our second story, we're going to stick with your money. We're talking about Tax Day. Yes, April 30th. I'm sure many of you felt that pain as it passed. Now, not only does filing your taxes create a burden, obviously the money that you have to shell out to the government every year, but the process of filing your taxes also creates a burden for Canadian families. We spoke to Niels Veldhuis, who is the president of the Fraser Institute, about exactly the type of burden that Canadian families are bearing.
If you add up all of those costs, the cost of our time, the cost of the programs, the cost for some people, for accountants and for appeals, it works up to about $25 billion a year for Canadians.
In 2007, it was somewhere between almost 17 and 22 billion. Now we're up to 19.2, and you're saying 24.8 billion dollars. That's a big whack out of the economy. And I guess if you're a tax accountant, maybe it works okay for you. But in the long run, there's got to be better ways to do this.
Yeah, no question. Look, this is unproductive time for most people, time they could be spending working, spending with their family and their friends. It's a substantial and complex tax system. No question that we have to look at tax reform and try and reduce the burden, try to simplify the tax system and get rid of a lot of these exemptions, deductions and carve-outs that exist for special interest groups.
That Producer's Pick was from The Source, guest hosted by Jerry Agar, and it was brought to you by Ricky Ratliff, who is the senior producer for The Source. That wraps up Producer's Picks this week. Back to you.